Current research and prominent voices speaking about the faith of young people have identified 3 key spiritual relationships that help Christian youth hold on to their faith as they enter adulthood. First is the young person's parents. If a young person's parents practice the faith in the home and in daily life, not just in public church settings, makes a big difference in a youth's life. The second is mentors. The young person had a mentor, at least one significant adult or friend, other than their parents, who practiced the faith seriously. The young person had a meaningful personal relationship with God expressed through the Bible, reading, prayer, and engagement in Christian community is the third aspect. These findings inspire us to recognize the vital role of parents and adults in reaching and discipling the next generation. As the body of Christ, we need to be a loving church family that is actively living on mission with Jesus. When this is embraced by everyone, parents will be living out and sharing their faith daily, while other adults will be mentoring and praying for the young people in their churches. In turn, young people will have the opportunity to experience Jesus and become equipped and empowered to read the Bible, pray, and engage in Christian community. We have a great episode of One Day Closer for you today. We're going to learn about a ministry that is living on mission with Jesus by reaching young people and helping them connect more deeply with Jesus, faithful adults, and Christian community, and having some fun while they're doing it as well. We're here today with Samantha DelBorrello and Sadie Sullivan to talk about Young Life. So Sam and Sadie, I'm so glad that you're on the show today to talk more about the awesome mission that Young Life has in reaching youth for Jesus. So just starting, I want to get to know you a little better and our guests to get to know you better. Sam, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your family?
Yeah. So I'm a mom. Just recently, my son turns 1 on Monday, which is really exciting. His name is Daxton. And my husband, Matt, works in Bethlehem. He sells insurance, and we're both Young Life leaders.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. And Daxton, and as you know, my son's name is Paxton, so I love that name.
Yeah, so funny.
And Sadie, so Sadie, you are my niece, mm-hmm. So it's a privilege to have you on the show.
It's very fun.
That's awesome.
A little bit of nepotism.
Yeah, a little bit. I will definitely show favoritism. I'm okay with that. So, Sadie, tell us a little bit about your family.
Okay, so my dad is your brother, your older brother.
Awesome guy.
Yeah. I live with both my parents, Brady and Jasmine, and then we have my 3 little brothers, Wyatt, Sam, and Henry. Wyatt's a freshman, Sam's in 8th grade, and then Henry's in 5th grade. Mm-hmm. And then we have 3 pets. We have 2 cats and a dog. So
yeah,
it gets a little crazy. Yeah.
It does, but it's a good crazy, right? I love the sign. I think you have up that "We Love Loud" or something like that.
Oh, I think we got rid of that a while
ago.
You did? But okay. we did have that.
And it's still present, so
yeah.
It's okay. Sam, tell us a little bit about, so you're Associate Director for Young Life, Associate Area Director. What is Young Life Ministry?
Young Life is working with teenagers. It's reaching them for the gospel. It's being on mission with them. We really want to go into adolescents' lives and build relationships with them. Really a huge part of Young Life is reaching unchurched kids. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So Sadie, luckily, comes from an awesome believing home, but some of her friends at Parkland High School don't. And so this is a tool for Sadie to reach her friends at Parkland and, for Young Life all across the Lehigh Valley.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you, Sam, had an experience with Young Life as was it a high school student?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So when I was a junior in high school, I had a friend who kept inviting me, and she kept telling me to come, and I didn't really want to. But then a boy that I liked started going to Young Life, and so I said, okay, I'll go with you, and that's how I started going to Young Life. And at first it was just going for fun and going to the Monday night events we call club, and then I started going to Campaigners, which is a Bible study on Friday mornings, and that's kind of where I grew deeper in my faith and also in the Young Life community. So that was kind of my my start with Young Life, but also in a lot of ways when I made my faith my own.
Yeah, that's great. And Sadie, tell us about your introduction, or how did you get involved with Young Life?
Okay, so I don't really, it's kind of confusing how I got involved with Young Life. It was during COVID, the summer after COVID happened. I think my mom joined the committee for Young Life in our area. And then we went to the Kurtz's house for a pool party, and I didn't want to go, I didn't know what it was. But I ended up meeting some really cool kids who I liked hanging out with, and then I started going to the Freedom Club in the fall.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's a Freedom Club?
So Freedom is a high school. It's in Bethlehem. And they had their Young Life Club, but there was only like 7 of us, so it was more like campaigners. So it was like a Bible study.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. And I love the heart of Young Life of really meeting the relational component, the missional component, meeting the kids where they're at, and not just focusing on believers, but how do we bring people to Christ and then equip also those who are already believers and those coming to Christ to be missional in their community, which is great. So tell me about the clubs, Sam. So they're at different schools. The clubs are mainly at a specific school, or how does that work?
Yeah, so clubs work out of a high school, not in the high school. So it's not like your traditional club that you'd see at a club fair for a high school. We work with schools, but not in them. So, for example, at Parkland High School, where Sadie goes, we have club at kids' homes in their basement, their multi-purpose room or living room or whatever. And then the Bible study is actually at my husband and I's house, because we live close to Parkland. But yeah, for Freedom High School, Emmaus High School, Liberty High School, Allen and Deerhoff, they're all meeting in kids' homes and reaching that demographic of kids at that high school, whatever high school they're reaching, but really we operate out of people's homes.
Okay, that's great. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and learn more about that.
Okay.
Stay tuned. We're going to be right back to dig a little more into what it looks like for Young Life to be reaching youth through relationships and mission.
Watch Lighthouse TV wherever you go. Available on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and Apple TV. Search Lighthouse TV online on your streaming device, or go to our website, lighthousetv.org, for more information.
Welcome back to One Day Closer. We're here with Samantha DelBorrello and Sadie Sullivan talking about Young Life Ministry. So Sam and Sadie, we've just been talking about Young Life and how it's missional. You have clubs at schools and you're meeting the kids where they're at. And it's also very relational. I want to talk a little bit more about that. So you have kind of 2 main components, the clubs and the campaigners. And I love, you call clubs party with a purpose. Is that?
Yeah.
So tell me about what's a party with a purpose.
So club is like, it's supposed to be really fun. It's supposed to be like lots of energy, you know, so that people can bring their friends who they wouldn't normally bring to like church or like youth group. They can bring them and they can be introduced to Jesus. So, yeah.
That's great. So it's centered around building relationships, doing fun activities. Was the party that you went to at the Kurtz's, was that considered a club, or that wasn't out of the school? That was just an event that you did?
Yeah, that was for like committee members. So like people who like run Young Life around the Lehigh Valley, they are the committee, and then they have meetings, and it's like a fun time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And your mom's like a committee extraordinaire as far as launching things, whether it's saving the pool for the community or...
My goodness, yes.
She's great at that. She really is.
She takes responsibility for sure.
It's great at projects. Sam, why is it so important that you're doing fun, adventurous activities to try and connect with the kids?
Yeah, well, a lot of kids have a negative stereotype of Jesus. They think he's all about rules and nothing to do with fun. And so a part of our mission is to show kids that they can have a fun, adventurous, full life when they're doing it with Jesus. And yeah, and for club, some kids might be intimidated by church or the quietness of church or the formality of church. But for showing up at their friend's house to hang out in the basement and sing some karaoke songs and be goofy, that is a less intimidating environment. And so we really just want to break down some of those barriers that they maybe have in their own minds from cultural associations with church and things.
Yeah.
So we kind of want to break down some of those stereotypes and barriers.
So you're purposefully and intentionally using that as a means to meet kids where they're at, and also correct a misconception about what it means to be a Christian. Right? That we should be able to enjoy life to the fullest, just in the best ways possible. Sadie, you kind of talked about this a little bit before, but how have you seen, for you or other kids, how does that fun aspect help break down barriers for some of the kids involved?
Yeah, so definitely when I first started, when I was a little freshman, I was like 14. When I started, I went to like Freedom's Club, and I don't know, it wasn't very I didn't really think Jesus was like a fun guy, you know? I didn't feel like I just went to church and I just went to the Bible studies, and I didn't really have a lot of fun with that, you know? But then in the spring of my sophomore year, I started going to Emmaus Young Life, which is another school around here. And that was like a big change, because it was like so many people, everybody's having fun, everybody's so welcoming, like they want you to be there, and they want you to have fun with them, and it was really nice. And then, I'm sorry, I forgot the rest of the question. What was
No, it was just how fun connects with kids. So for you, it was going to a space where there are a lot of other I shouldn't say kids, youth your age that were having a great time together, and there was a deeper purpose behind it.
And it kind of changed the way that I viewed Jesus even, and God, being able to have fun in this space and still learn about Jesus and meet people with my same views. I was like, I can actually have fun with this. Like, it doesn't have to be just going to church on Sundays. Like, I can make this my own.
Yeah.
So that's what I liked about it.
Oh, that's great. And it can be hard, because it's hard if you feel like, well, church is rules and Bible study, and fun is oftentimes, from the world's perspective, turns into things that aren't good and end up being destructive, and if there's no balance. But to bring those two things together, I think is huge. That's fantastic. And it's universal. When I became a follower of Jesus at 26 because my brother, your dad, invited me to an awesome young adult group. And it started with a guy named Ray Rivera, who I never met. And I showed up there, and he came up, "You're Brady's brother?" Gave me a huge hug. And it was awesome. It was like, it was that relationship. And then just seeing, wow, these people are living for Jesus, but they didn't take life overly seriously either, right? They were just going through it together. So
being in the right community is so important for when you're first starting out.
Yeah, huge. And even when you keep going.
Oh yeah, especially when you keep going.
And then tell me about Campaigners then, Sam. What's the second component?
Yeah, so Campaigners is a Bible study more predominantly, and that's really a place for really kids like Sadie and some of our more involved students to come and get a little bit deeper in their faith. We try to keep club a little more surface level, intro level. And then, this is an opportunity, a place for kids to go deeper. And really there's three main components. We want them to go deeper in their relationship with Jesus and learn more about the Bible and have tools of how to interpret Scripture and read through the Bible on their own time, but then also fellowship with each other, having community with other Christians. And then the last component is mission, how to reach their school, how to reach their friends. And even for club, I feel like Sadie has some friends that she's had successfully come to Young Life, and I feel like they wouldn't come if it wasn't fun.
For sure.
Yeah, that's great. And I really appreciate the idea of equipping them to live on mission, right? This isn't just about, I think it so often can be viewed, it's all about us. But showing them, and I think that's so crucial for the next step too, because when you go off to college, Sadie, or when others move on to that next stage of life, whatever it is, that they're going to a mission field that's not just about where do I find my place to fit in, it's how do I serve God? That's a totally different question, right? How do I reach this community for Christ instead of how do I get people like me, or just try and fit in. Yeah. So that's great.
It's been like such a learning. Sorry, can I talk about this?
You absolutely
okay, perfect.
Talk about this.
So it's been like such a great opportunity because we didn't used to have Parkland Young Life. We used to just be combined with Emmaus. Like when I started, there was no Parkland Young Life. I was the only Parkland person going to Young Life freshman year.
Okay.
And then
Parkland's a huge school.
It is. It's a big school. We have like thousands. But sorry, lost my train of thought.
I interrupted you, so that's
no,
my
you're
bad.
good. Then I think sophomore year in the spring, we started getting some more people, and then we kind of just built it from there. And it's been really, it's been like a learning experience, like building up Young Life, learning that it's really like it is for me, but also it's not about me.
Yeah.
It's about how we can spread Jesus' love to the people in our schools.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a great tagline. It's for me, but it's not about me. I love that. That's fantastic. And I really like about Young Life the focus, as we talked about, Sam, and I know about your relationship, that you're really investing in the students' lives. And so talk a little bit about your relationship with Sadie and how that has developed.
Well, as she said, Jasmine, her mom, was on our committee. So the committee is a group of adults who support the staff and campaign for Young Life in the area. But Jasmine wanted me to meet Sadie and hang out with her. So I think our first hangout was thrift shopping.
Oh, yeah. I thought this was so weird. Like, who is this lady? Why does she want to talk to me?
I knew you probably felt that way, but I just pushed through it.
That's right.
But yeah, and Sadie was so quiet. So funny.
Yeah.
She was so quiet. And then you went on the summer camp trip.
Oh, yeah, the summer camp
And
trip.
she was the only Parkland girl.
Okay.
And my new job on Young Life staff was to start Parkland Young Life. So I was like, okay, I need to get closer with Sadie still. And about halfway through the week, we were sitting by the pool and Sadie is chit-chatting, like actually talking a lot. And she goes, I'm sorry if I'm being annoying. And I was like, no, it's fine. Like you were so quiet before. And she was like, well, I like you. So now I'm going to talk a lot. And I remember in my head being like, yes.
And something that really bonded us that week was my first boyfriend broke up with me at camp, and Sam was there for me. Yeah, so that's...
So she was there to encourage you, and that's awesome.
It's a bonding moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And so these camps are kind of a third component. That's a summer thing. You go for a week, or what does that look like?
Well, we actually have fall weekend in a week from now.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so
great.
yeah, it's really exciting. That's just a weekend trip up to Lake Champion in New York.
Yeah.
It's one of our camps, and then we usually take a whole week in the summer. Yeah, so there's 3 different camps we can go to locally. The summer camp's a little different. It's called Saranac in the Adirondacks. So yeah, she's wearing her shirt. But yeah, so camp is just another place where we can invite kids into this adventurous, fun, full life. The whole week they don't have their phones.
Yes, that's great.
So just that alone, like the time to actually have conversations face to face, like interactions with their friends and not behind a screen is super, super important. And then we have lots of fun, crazy things planned. And at Saranac in particular, there's parasailing and different things that we get to do. Tubing,
Wakeboarding if you wake up early.
Yeah.
If you wake up early.
Yeah, it's only before 8 a.m. So.
Okay.
Yeah, that's an early riser kind of thing. But yeah, and there's a speaker the whole week that every night gets to share and unfold the gospel. The way Young Life does it is we start the week by talking just about Jesus and who he is. Then we share about our need for him, the sin, cross, and resurrection. It's all kind of in an order. And so kids get to see that unveiled throughout the week.
That's
and
really neat.
A leader that gets to go home with them, can process it with them at camp, but then also help them walk it out once they get home.
It's really powerful to be in a different space, first of all, and then to be away from devices, right?
Yeah.
So study after study shows how unhealthy it is for youth to be in real relationship, but then to have in that space also the unfolding of the gospel. What an awesome opportunity for transformation in kids' lives.
Yeah.
So.
It's awesome.
And there's not many spaces where the gospel is laid out so clearly. Because even if you go to church, obviously pastors, I mean, you'd hope, are sharing the gospel in their sermons, but the way we do it at Young Life Camp is just very like, this is it. Here's the gospel, like very clearly.
Yes.
And so it doesn't take much interpretation. They see it from beginning to end over the course of the week, and we're there as leaders to help them process any questions they have. And yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, as we close up, Sam, how could people partner with Young Life to continue help with the mission God's doing through you?
Yeah, well, if Young Life is in your area, joining the committee, like Jasmine, it's great for us to have people to build connections in the community, to advocate for Young Life, connect us to churches. We have a lot of churches in the Lehigh Valley that support us. And so just having those connections, places that our kids can go to church once they meet Jesus, because that's really the big thing, is connecting these kids to a greater body of believers. And then also, full transparency, financially. Camp is expensive. It's very. Sadie did a lot of fundraisers at the Iron Pigs. We would work at the Iron Pigs concession stands and stuff. And so financially, even helping kids get to camp so that they can experience that fun, full life that Jesus has for us.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. It's been so great and super special, Sadie, to be able to have you on the show.
I loved it.
So this was awesome. Thank you. Stay tuned. We'll be right back to talk about how we can apply some of these principles to our lives.
Watch Lighthouse TV wherever you go. Available on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and Apple TV. Search Lighthouse TV online on your streaming device, or go to our website, lighthousetv.org, for more information.
After God used Moses to rescue his people from Egypt, Joshua led them into the promised land where they experienced rest and blessing. But then Joshua 24:31 tells us, Israel served the Lord all the days of Joshua, which is amazing. Then we move forward to Judges 2, and we see a heartbreaking turn of events. It says, a new generation arose that did not know the Lord and abandoned him for other gods. And this raises a crucial question. How does something like that happen? Was it a failure to pass on the faith by the older generations, or did the younger generation simply reject that faith? The Bible doesn't give us a definitive answer, but it suggests both play a role. And the real question for us today is, how do we prevent this from happening now in this generation? The answer lies in pursuing and loving the young people in our lives just as Jesus loves us. We must step outside the church walls and engage with their world, modeling what it means to passionately follow Jesus, walking alongside them as they learn, and inviting them into the incredible mission that God has for all of us. Brothers and sisters, what would it look like if the next chapter in our lives was a story of winsomely building bridges to reach the next generation with the love of Jesus, so that their lives can become saturated with the love, goodness, and holiness of God? Here are some steps that you can take today to begin doing this in your life tomorrow. First, get along with God right after this show and pray that He would give you His heart to reach the next generation for Him. Second, write down one way that you can begin pursuing the young people God has placed in your life. Maybe it's one young person in your family or in your neighborhood or church. Maybe it's a ministry at your church. Maybe it's a ministry like Young Life that you can begin supporting prayerfully, financially, and through volunteering. Third, write down the next 3 smallest steps you can take to start bringing Jesus to the young people in your life. And write down the day and time that you're going to take the first step. Thank you so much for joining us for One Day Closer, where we're learning together how to use our one day closer to eternity to bring Jesus-infused hope and purpose to many.